I left off about the anarchy and the white ship, which created by Henry I, which crashed in the Atlantic coast. This is where the Sesquiquay Trust comes in, or the Sesquiquay Act comes into play. Godfrey V, Plantagenet's Count of Anjou in Maine, wife was called Matilda. Let's go down. Their son was called Henry II. Henry II's son was called John I. This was the one who signed the Magna Carta. You don't believe me? Let's check it out. You have to forget these pictures because they were whitewashed. But that picture you see there was a picture of Stefan. Okay. Henry II started what they call the Angevin dynasty. Hold on, my brothers and sisters. Let me just close this. Okay, here we go. This, when you come into what they call the giving is this society. This is where you get Henry II, ruled from 1154 to 1189. His wife Eleanor of Aquitaine. From there you have descendants Richard I and John I of 1199 and 1216, and his wife Isabella of Aquitaine. This is when you get into the Magna Carta signing. If you watch the movie Kingdom of Heaven, this story is taken from there. Watch the movie Kingdom of Heaven. This is going into Saladin, dealing with the Kingdom of Jerusalem, because the Kingdom of Jerusalem was ruled by who? Godfrey. Let's go back here. Right here. Godfrey V. That's his name, Godfrey V. House of Plantagenet, Count of Anjou. Henry I, 1100 to 35 AD. And his wife Matilda, who birthed Godfrey V, Count of Anjou. All right? Let's close this back out. Let's see where else we can go. All right. Now, all these other clips I got goes into the history dealing with the King George and them, the House of Hanover, dealing with the Roman Republic, that associated with the French. So now you can do that research on your own, but I'm going to show you from the records that this king here, King Edgar the Peaceful, was at that time called, or there was the so-called person called Jesus Christ. This is a book. complicated. Let's blow it up. It says, what an ancient form of social organization reveals about the future of individual freedom. The rule of the clan. The rule of the clan confronts an uncomfortable but important reality. This is by Mark S. Weiner, author of Black Trials. I have that book as well. All right. Let's go into some of the verbiage in this book. I suggest you, brothers and sisters, get this book. I didn't write this, my brothers and sisters. They wrote it. This is prophecy. Prophecy, my brothers and sisters. I couldn't believe it myself when I found out that they was talking about me. Remember, this king looks exactly like me. Exactly like me. How I know this information? How come nobody else who existed before me come out with this information? Because they were not the king. Because prior to the invasion, we were living in tribes as Berbers, who were Anglo-Saxon tribesmen who existed through ancient times. They go back all the way up to the 22nd dynasty of Shushan, who is actually identified as Shishak and King in the Book of Kings in the Bible. These were the pharaohs of misnumbered Egypt. They were Berber pharaohs, Berber kings, misnumbered pharaohs. From kin to king, state development in Anglo-Saxon England. Pay attention to this, my brothers and sisters. In 973, in the Abbey in Bath, a great Anglo-Saxon king lay prostrate before an altar while the Archbishop of Canterbury wept with joy. This king was Edgar the First. Edgar Jefferson, I should say. Because the name Jefferson is Old English Godfrey, which means peaceful place. And this is the only king throughout all the kings of of England, who never had a war. Never had a war until it was overthrown by William the Conqueror, by overthrowing his grandson Edward the Confessor in 1066. This is when King Edward the Confessor died. 1035, John prophesied in the year 995 BC, or 96 BC, which is, according to the Berber calendar, is the year 1035. Okay? The king was Edgar the First, known as Edgar the Peaceful. And at the age 30, he was in his 14th year of an exceedingly successful reign under his rule. England revamped its currency, streamlined its central administration, sustained its military authority over a once restive island, and recognized its counties along the lines that would remain essentially unchanged until 1974. I was 4 years old. The Archbishop was Dunstan, a determined reformer of the English Church, an advocate for its monastic interests. Overcome by the king's humility, he sang the hymn Te Deum through his tears. We praise thee, O God. We acknowledge thee to be the Lord. A half century later, he will be canonized as a saint. Do you hear that, or do you see that, my brothers, to see that? I didn't write this. The occasion for Edgar's pious self-effacement and Dunstan's joy was the king's coronation. Tellingly, the ceremony was held on Pentecost, when Christians celebrate the descent of the Holy Spirit on the apostles. The age of the king, too, was significant, the same at which Jesus began his ministry. You can't make this up, brother. I can't make this up. The ritual began when Edgar, wearing a crown holding a scepter. See the picture we seen when I first opened up? The ritual began when Edgar, wearing a crown holding a scepter, was led into the abbey by a parade of white-robed clerics. A crowd of priests, in the words of the Anglo-Saxon chronicles, a throng of monks and the council sage. The ensuing ceremony was filled with all the pageantry of a great royal events in England today. The queen will be anointed with holy oil from an animal's horn. He will be given a ring, a sword, a crown, a scepter, and a staff as a symbol of his rule. I got that staff, my brothers and sisters. I have that staff. I'll show it to you later. Let's go to the next page. The transformation of a clan. It said, and the abbey would resound with the joyous anthem from First Kings, Zodok the priest, and Nathan the prophet. But in constitutional terms, the most important part of the ritual came when Edgar spoke, shortly after clerics raised him from his position of humility before the altar. For it was then that he swore in his coronation oath, making a public promise to rule according to certain principles. His words have echoed as loudly across constitutional history as the anthem of the Zodok priest echoed in the abbey at Bath that day. And in the name of the Holy Trinity, I promise three things to the Christian people, my subjects. Did you hear that? His subjects. He declared first that God's church and all Christian people. I'm going to say it again. First, that God's church and all Christian people. God's church is the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Church of England. I've proven that already. That all Christians of my realm shall enjoy true peace. Second, that I forbid to all ranks of men robbery and all wrongful deeds. Third, that I urge and command justice and mercy in all judgments, so that the gracious and compassionate God who lives and reigns may grant us all his everlasting mercy. In modern terms, the king has pledged to protect the church and safeguard public order by applying the law to all persons regardless of rank, and to govern according to an abstract Christian ideal of justice. Edgar's pledge is the first coronation oath in the Anglo-Saxon historical record, and though it may not have been the earliest ever taken, coming a long way from its roots in a very different. Pardon, so let me go back. And though it may not have been the earliest ever taken by an English king, it clearly marked an Anglo-Saxon government as having come a long way from its roots in a very different way of life. What are the preconditions for modern clan societies to develop the rule of law? What are the fruits of that transformation? The English Middle Ages, the story leading to Edgar's coronation oath and beyond offers important clues. Did you hear that, my brothers and my sisters? There it is. So now, this is the book. Hold on, no, before I go there, let's read you something else from the same book about the Prophet Muhammad. Because we said that who created the Gregorian calendar? Pope Gregory the 13th. In 1582. And Pope Gregory the 13th came down from a whole line of Pope Gregory's, i.e. Pope Gregory the First. Pope Gregory the First had what they call the Gregorian Reform. That was done in 597 AD. Now check this out. Hope you can see this. We have made you into nations and tribes. Division of early Islam. Listen what this says. When the missionaries sent by Pope Gregory to convert the Anglo-Saxon land in Kent in 597, the young merchant who would become the prophet of Islam was a recently married man. Okay? So I'm reading it again. When the missionaries sent by Pope Gregory to convert the Anglo-Saxon, what does it mean to convert? To change. So it changed the Anglo-Saxon from their original way of life, which was what? Berber. And the young merchant would become the prophet of Islam and was recently married, and a recently married man. So he wasn't even an Islamic. He was an Anglo-Saxon, living in the land of Kent. Born around 570, Muhammad had spent his early years as a shepherd and occasional trader, gaining a reputation for honesty that earned him the nickname Al-Amin, the trustworthy. Let's see if we go down a little further. At this point, Anglo-Saxon Christianity too was in its relative infancy. Following the death in 616 of the first Christian Anglo-Saxon ruler, King Ethelbert in Kent, many of his subjects quickly reverted to paganism. See now, this is where you get the story. Remember I said King Alfred the Great, 871 AD? But how could he live in AD when they didn't switch from AD, BC to AD in the year to the year 950, 951? So all that story dealing with the so-called Islam and the so-called Anglo-Saxons was created in its infancy out of the Berber history, because you can see King Edgar the Peaceful, the king of England, standing on the checkerboard, which is symbolic of Berber. All right. Thereafter, signposts of religious development in England and Arabia appear on the timeline of history in striking parallel. In striking parallel. I do my research, my brothers and sisters. I do my research. Okay. Let me go here. Let's go back to the baby food. Let's look up the flag of meaning. Flag of England. Back up. I don't know why I did that. Do it this way. Let's try it this way. Let's see how we come out. Yes, much better. Okay, you see that? What symbol is this? Where do you see this symbol at all the time? The hospital. Symbolic of health. Right? Bandages. When you bandage yourself up, hanging on the wall, that's what that's symbolic. So instead of hanging that bandage or that box full of bandages on the wall to heal yourself, won't you just hang your family crest up back on the wall as an English national until you can hear yourself perfectly. The flag of England is derived from St. George's Cross. St. George's Cross is symbolic of, let's go to it right quick. We battling these demons, these dragons. Excuse me, I apologize. See him? Right there, fighting the dragon. St. George flying the flag of Leeds in Town Hall. If you watch the Wayans Brothers in New York, you'll see that flag hanging outside when the first show come on. They switch between American flag and that flag. You'll see it. Just keep watching the show and you'll see that flag. Why did they show that flag? Because there's a reason for it. Let's see. Okay. St. George also rose to a position of the patron saint of England after the English Reformation, and since the early modern period, his flag came to be identified as the national flag of England. Not of Britain, not of the United Kingdom, but of England. Right? St. George is the patron saint of Catalonia, as also of Georgia, and the national flag of Georgia displays as a combination of St. George's cross as St. George's cross and the Jerusalem cross. So this flag represents Jerusalem. All right? Original medieval use. St. George became widely venerated as a warrior saint during the Third Crusade. This is a war between Jerusalems, which came in a couple crusades. There was a legend that he had miraculously assisted Godfrey of Bouillon. Godfrey Bouillon was the ruler, king of Jerusalem at one particular time. Let's read who he was right now. Right quick. All right. Godfrey of Bouillon was a Frankish knight and one of the leaders of the First Crusade from 1096 until the conclusion of 1099. He was the Lord of Bouillon, from which he took his by name, from 1076, and the Duke of Lorraine from 1087. After the successful siege of Jerusalem in 1099, Godfrey became the first ruler of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. He refused the title of king, however, as he believed that the true king of Jerusalem was Jesus Christ, preferring to the title of advocate. All right? So he didn't even take it. His successor was Henry I. This is when you get into the anarchy and the white shit. Because Henry I had son by his wife Matilda, Godfrey of Bouillon. If y'all can't understand this, I don't know what to tell you. Let's go back. This is dealing with the flag itself. It says the Red Cross in particular was associated with the Knights Templar from the time of the Second Crusade. But in 1188, the red and white cross was chosen to identify the French and English troops in the King's Crusade of Philip II of France and Henry II of England, respectively, together with the Jerusalem cross. The plain red on white became a recognizable symbol of the Crusades from about 1190. In the 13th century, it came to be used as a standard or emblem by numerous leaders or polities who wanted to associate themselves with the Crusades. Now, Philip II of France grew up in the Anglo-Saxon courts. Henry II of England was the son of Godfrey, the fifth Count of Anjou. We just went over it. We showed you a map. All right? Let's go into a little more history with this map. Find it. I don't know if it's in this. second. Let's go to, no, matter of fact, it's William the Conqueror. I'm sorry. That's what it is. Let me go out of here. Because we understand that Godfrey the fifth, Count of Anjou, ruled the House of Plantagen, were all part of the Kingdom of England. We proved that. Let's go to Edward the Confessor. So, now check this out. It'll be my last point to raise in lieu of this lesson for the day, because it's going to tie right back into Jersey. This is the time that John wrote the book on the island of Patmos to the 7 churches in Asia about the coming Messiah and his resurrection. I was born in January the 14th, 1970. King Edgar died in 1975. So that's 5 years short of 1,000 years. He was born in 943. Sheshing II of the 22nd Empire of the Berber, actually misnomer is Egypt, he died in the year 943 BC, Berber calendar. So that's 1,000 years from the, that's 1,000 years. He died in 943, and King Edgar was born in 943. King Edgar died in 975. I was born in 1970, which is short 5 years, give or take. All right? Edward the Confessor. Fifth of January. Oh, there you go. 5th of January. Also known as St. Edward the Confessor, was among the last Anglo-Saxon kings of England. Usually considered the last king of the House of Wessex, he ruled from 1042 to 1066. Edward was the son of Ethelred the Unready and Emma of Normandy. Ethelred the Unready was the son of King Edgar the Peaceful, who was actually Jesus Christ. All right. Let's get into the history. You can read this article on your own, but I'm going to show you how Jersey, misnomer New Jersey, comes into play. Okay. Edward the Confessor spent a quarter of a century in exile, probably mainly in Normandy, although there is no evidence of his location until the early 1030s. He probably received his support from his sister Godgifu. Godgifu married Baldwin I, who was the son of Ethelred, who was the daughter of Ethelred the Unready, the son of King Edgar the Peaceful. Look it up yourself. Godgifu, who married Drogo of Mantus, Count of Vexin, in about 1024. In the early 1030s, Edward witnessed 4 charges in Normandy, signing 2 of them as King of England. Now, if you ever heard of the New Jersey Great Seal, get its authority from the Great Seal of Rheims, which was created by this king, King Edward the Confessor. So it says here, signing 2 charges in Normandy, signing 2 of them as King of England. According to the Norman chronicler William J. Jamunci, and Robert I, Duke of Normandy, attempted an invasion of England to place Edward on the throne in about 1034. But it was blown off course to Jersey. Now, William the Conqueror, Edward the Confessor, says that he was blown off course in the year 1034. Now, the book of Revelations was written in the year 95 AD, 95 BC or 96 BC, which according to the Berber calendar is the year 1035 AD, in the year of our Lord. So Edward the Confessor, who was the son of Ethelred the Unready, was the last king of England, and he was blown off course to Jersey when the charges were being signed. It says it right here. Now, what is Jersey? This goes back to my name. Godfrey. Because remember Godfrey, the fifth Count Ranjou, and his son Emma had two sons. Henry the First and Emma had two sons, Robert the First and Godfrey, Count of Anjou. Okay, Jersey, Island, England, English Channel. All right. God save the Queen. Jersey, we went over this in my last video. Channel Island, Republic of Jersey. History of it. Let's get into history of when it's given by way of a charter by Charles II. I want you to read this. This is where the term Julius Caesar comes from. New Jersey is called Nova Caesarea. This is why you know the history dealing with Julius Caesar was a fraud. Because they followed the Justinian calendar, which was the Berber calendar. So they were making reference to New Jersey as Jersey, which was at that time a part of England. So now, my brothers and sisters, realize that you are in England. King John was the son of Henry II. Henry II was the son of Godfrey, the rich Count of Anjou. New Jersey, which we're talking about, was in recognition for the help given by Charles II, all from the descendants of the Kingdom of England. In Jersey in 1640, King Charles gave Vice Admiral Sir George Carteret, bailiff and governor, a large grant of land in American colonies in between the Hudson and Delaware River, which is promptly named New Jersey and now a state in the United States. So I rest my case, my brothers and sisters. I have proved to you, I have proved to the world, I have proved to the government, I have proved to all those who are foreigners that I am he who was said to come and to redeem the lost sheep of Israel back to their kingdom, which is the kingdom of Jerusalem, i.e. Jersey. And with that, I say peace.